Yeah, certainly. Obviously their physicality was huge today. They really put their body on the line, and that's expected though at inter-county level. And we know they've put in the hard yards. The people of Offaly, it's obviously a very close-knit hurling community, and we know that they're putting in the hard yards. But the thing, obviously, is for me tonight was the way they used the ball. They really looked up. They looked for the man in the best position, and every opportunity they got, they recycled it really, really well. And we saw some fantastic scores. 225 is truly a great score, particularly in the 27th of January.
What has Kevin Martin brought?
He's brought hunger, passion probably is the big one. The last couple of years we really weren't happy with the way Offaly were hurling. Sweepers systems really don't sit well with Offaly hurling people. We prefer to have a go. And look, if we're beaten, so be it. Look, we will have some dark days throughout this league and probably throughout this championship yet to come.
It's huge. As I said, some of these guys haven't played at Croke Park before. It's an amazing stadium. The surface was brilliant.
There's an old saying, you're better off with a good big fella than a good small fella. You've gone for a kind of a big man policy, and they're fit as well.
Yeah, there's some big lads in it, but the smallest lad in the team came in and scored a goal. So
it wasn't just about big fellas winning ball, it was about guys winning ball and doing good things with it.
Yeah, we have really good hurlers as well, and they use the ball sensibly, a lot of the time, and we have good point takers. And they hit scores from, I didn't see the stats yet, but it was a good spread across the field. So again, that's down to confidence. For the last number of years, they've been down, and I think even when they came in first, you could see the boys were just sick of being beaten. They just want to throw off the shackles and start hurling again, and they're starting to do it.
Yeah, look, we've got a lot of good lads. The group that we had out there today were capable of performing a lot better than that, so we're not making any complaints. Offaly just deserved their win today, and that's it. We have to look at our own performance and see how we're going to improve it.
Can a defeat like this kind of be a good thing? It kind of maybe sets a marker down and shows guys what they have to do. Are you hoping that's what this turns out to be?
Look, every time you have a defeat, maybe you learn more from that than you do from victory. So, that's what we'll do. We'll sit down and look at this rationally and figure out why we didn't perform the way we intended to.
All right, good stuff from Oisin speaking with the various interested parties after a big win for Offaly against Dublin in Croke on Saturday night. Daithí Regan joins us on the old Skype machine. Daithí, good morning to you. A happy Monday morning to all Offaly hurling fans.
It is. It's not very happy for our football fans, but it's a really good weekend, to be honest with you. Great to be in Croke Park. Really good Offaly crowd there. Saw so many former players up at it. There was really good vibe coming into the game, and Kevin has a huge respect himself within the county. Kevin would have had a huge respect amongst us, the guys that played with him. Coming from Tullamore, he was the only guy from Tullamore that was involved on the Offaly team. He was a huge asset to us. Before we'd won the All-Ireland in 94, Kevin came on the scene in 93. We hadn't really heard of him himself, but he embedded himself in the culture immediately. He was a natural progression, I guess, to move on to management. He's had good success with Tullamore and he's been with Westmeath, etc. But Kevin understands our culture, and I think speaking to him on Saturday night, he's very grounded. He accepts that this is one victory and that's it. But what it's done is the amount of people that were talking afterwards about Limerick visiting Tullamore next Sunday, it was just a huge swell of optimism. Not even that we'll beat Limerick, but people saying, "Geez, we can't wait to go to it." That's the first time in years that we've had this. So we're not getting ahead of ourselves in any way, but a difference, and the key was, I don't know, Michael Dignan even put a tweet out about him being emotional looking at it. I was there with my daughter, and she said to me 10 minutes into the game, "I've never seen Offaly hurling Croke Park." And then the extraordinary thing was to listen to people around you chanting Offaly during the game, in the first round of the National League, because for the first time in a long time, people had something that we could hang on to. We could look at a bunch of players who were leaving it on the line out there. And I mean leaving it on the line in a Division 1 National Hurling League game. And it was with such pride we watched it. It was incredible. It's a win in a National League game. But what one game has done, and the enjoyment it gave to a lot of people who love our county, love our game, and it's something to believe in, and we're thrilled. We're over the moon. But we know it's going to take a long way, but we have a solid man. We have a really solid man, and the difference is, He's not there for Kevin Martin, he's there for Offaly Hurling. And I felt the previous guys were there when they realised that we weren't up to the levels that maybe they thought we were at before they came in. They went ultra defensive and ultimately last year played with 2 extra defenders. And to me that was wrong, because it was about protecting their own reputation going forward in the management roundabout. Whereas with Kevin, it's not about him or his ego. It's about Offaly and doing the right thing for the culture and for the boys that he's with. So one swallow doesn't make a summer, but by God, Saturday night we all enjoyed it.
Tell me just a bit more about him. He was only 20 when he obviously, just checking there, born in 73, so he's only 20 in 93 when he joins the panel, and he's obviously one of the younger lads on that team that ultimately does win All Ireland for you. I don't really remember him that much as a hurler, a left half back. What kind of hurler was he?
Oh, rock solid. He was part of an outstanding half back line with Hubert Rigney, who was captain in 98, and of course Brian Whelan. Kevin was abrasive, a hard man. I mean, as Duignan said to me, yesterday, even look at him in interviews, chiselled, hard jaw, strong man, and that's the way he hurled. He was just a rock, a driving force from left half back, and I played in front of him in midfield for the 94 and 95 All Ireland finals. But what I like about Kevin Martin, even then, Kevin wasn't afraid to tell you if your shoulder wasn't to the wheel. And Kevin and I wouldn't probably have been the best of pals in the early days in the hurling. Kevin would have got on my case quite a bit about fitness or maybe lack of fitness during the league, and he wasn't shy about telling you. And so much respect for him for that. And we spoke about it towards the latter end of our careers. A lot of respect for him. He went in as player manager with Tullamore, unhurled it in 2009, and they won a county final. Unhurled it, there would have been 100-1 at the start of the year, and he was well in his 30s at that stage and played full forward as well. So he has huge respect in the county. He always did. As a player, he had huge respect. He was quiet off the pitch, minded himself well, but a great Offaly man who is much respected in our county, and he hasn't gained extra respect for that because of Saturday night. He had that anyway. But we're just glad that he's there, and we have a great respect for him. And like I say, I spoke with him Saturday night, but he was so down to earth about it. Listen, we got to win, was his view. We've got to win. And we just kind of said, well, Kevin, you're giving something back. You're giving something to those guys. And they're big and they're strong. And, as he said himself in his interview, we're sick and tired of losing. Players get sick and tired of losing. I mean, I met with Richie Connor and Pádraig Dunn off the Offaly 82 team yesterday, and they were pretty distraught at what they'd seen in Tullamore against Longford. And they said, and there was such a vibe after last night in the hurling. We really all felt good. The football people, we felt good going into the game. We were saying, God, what a night last night was. The footballers can do the same thing. You feed off it, and when you've been down for so long and so many of us have known such success, but we've had such many barren years that you feed off anything. But Saturday night was quite extraordinary for a National League game. The joy on people's faces, and to hear men, women and children chanting Offaly at a game. Okay, Dublin will say, and we're not interested really, Dublin will say they were shorn of a lot of players. They were, but this was about Offaly Saturday night.
Yeah, because at the start of the year, and maybe more at the end of last year, it looked like we could be entering a new dark period for Offaly Hurling with the potential for relegation from the Leinster Championship this year for the first time proper. And people were kind of putting that together with last season and thinking, geez, where is it actually going to end? But when you start getting these types of results, you begin to mobilise support, more people start to believe in things, and all of a sudden it becomes its own self-fulfilling prophecy.
Totally, Jerry. Yeah, it's well said. I mean, and that's the reality of it. Coming out after we had been beaten by Waterford last year, and we played our two wing forwards as sweepers. It was, I remember I covered a game with you guys, and the feeling afterwards from people, I mean, I actually spoke to the Offaly manager at the time after the game, and I said to him, I think the way you've set up was wrong. It sent a message out to the players immediately. We're going to lose, but you know what, we're going to try and keep it down. And there was no sweepers employed the other night. Dublin at times in the second half tried to run the ball the length of the field. Offaly ultimately would turn it over, and in the space of a flash, it was just a long ball up the field, but not aimless. Everyone was always trying to put someone into space to play heads-up hurling, and that doesn't take 5 passes to do it. That invariably can take 1 pass on an overlap, and the receiver then was always looking up. There was no aimless hurling, and that breeds confidence. And I can tell you there's going to be a really good crowd at the game next Sunday against Limerick, and I think Limerick are good. obviously they're shorn of the club players involved in the Club All-Ireland semi-final, and they always travel in big numbers. And over the years we've been playing them in the league. Limerick have outnumbered Offaly at National League games in Tullamore, and that's been well commented on. That's not going to be the case next Sunday. We're going to have a really big crowd, and like you said, you're correctly said, this is what it breeds. You know, we're grounded. We know where we're at, but what we witnessed on Saturday night was, you know, it's an opening salvo. It's not a battle won, but it's an opening salvo to say, you know, we have hurlers in our county. People in the county care about them, and we now have a manager who's given them a license to express themselves and not to be afraid and be inhibited, but to be proud of who they are and not to genuflect anymore to so-called better teams. And we did that for too long. We genuflected before we went out. We genuflected to no on Saturday night. We won't genuflect on Sunday. It may not mean we'll win, but we know what's coming on Sunday night. We couldn't say that for the last, not since Joe Dooley was managing Offaly. We couldn't say we know what's going to happen Sunday. Our boys are going to go out and are going to fight till the last, and are going to leave it all out there. We haven't had that in 8 to 9 years.
Just to move on to the rest of the weekend's matches, because there was some really interesting stuff coming out from the games. Interesting to see Cork pick up a little bit where they left off in last year's championship. It was nip and tuck against Kilkenny, and ultimately the last 10-15 minutes they managed to see that through. They're the type of young team that will really benefit from these close matches.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a really good game, and I did really fancy Cork down there. I like what Cork have done last year. In hindsight, you know, in the All-Ireland semi-final, Waterford were very, very experienced, but Cork's progress through Munster, there's always been talent in Cork. There's good talent in Cork. The dynamic with John Myler is really interesting. I think he's a good man. I think he's a superb hurling man who's a grounded hurling man. I think the progress this year with Cork, definitely a team to watch. I really think Kilkenny are in transition. I think sometimes people are kind of a little bit reticent to write their obituary on the basis that they're terrified Cody won't talk to them, or, you know, Cody will savage them. I think Kilkenny are in regression, I have to say. And I wouldn't have them as All-Ireland contenders. And I didn't have them as All-Ireland contenders last year. They're good. They're quite good, but they're not a superb team now. There's been so much change, and that's cyclical. You lose players over time, but they've lost some of the greatest players of the game. You don't overnight change that. And year after year, if you're not winning, well, then you lose the lack of arrogance, maybe the wrong word, but this absolute belief that we will beat everybody. I think Kilkenny don't have that in, and that's the biggest challenge he faces, is to keep that culture and maintain that culture in Kilkenny, and that's the greatest gift to me that Brian Cody has over the years. But I really at the moment don't see them as All-Ireland contenders, but I would put Cork up there as contenders, and from what I saw more last year, not specifically the other night, I do think Cork have a lot coming through and a lot of balance.
Do you fear that Kilkenny have lost this amazing skill that they had of winning games all the time when they were in the melting pot? And by extension, do you feel Cork have now picked up that gene, this kind of intangible thing that they will win when it really matters?
Well, I think the lesson against Waterford last year, we'll find out more about Cork this year. I just think they have a greater spread. I think the difficulty with Kilkenny is in getting tight games over the line. When you don't have the quality and calibre of player that they had over previous years, it takes an extraordinary mind. You know, a really good forward will always score more in the second half than he will in the first half when a game is in the melting pot. And not enough of these guys have been in the situation where they've been winning key All-Ireland semi-finals or All-Ireland finals. So they've got to be proven yet. And until such time as they do it rightly, there should be question marks about them. Why Cork over Kilkenny? I just think there's a greater spread in the forward line. I just don't think the dynamic in the Kilkenny forward line, I don't think there's enough class up there, and I don't think there's enough guys proven yet. Now maybe they'll prove us, or me and the others, wrong this year. But from what I've seen to date, I think he's still trying to sort out his full back line. Obviously Murphy is away on duty. Rory Walsh to me is a superb wing back, and albeit a wonderful scorer, I still see him more as a wing back. So it's like the success Kilkenny had over the years. Very few new guys were breaking through into it, and then you get a tranche of players in the space of a year or two leaving at the one time. It's awful difficult to replace that. You can never write them totally off, but they're certainly not the force that they were, and that's not a criticism of them.
No, for sure. Is Eamon Sweeney calling for him to step down? Is he saying it's time for him to go?
He should now take on a director role, reads the sub-headline for Sweeney's piece. So exactly, he says the air of greatness has evaporated and their legendary manager, as I say, should take on a more directorial position.
It's not quite calling for him to step aside totally.
No, he wants Cody involved, but I think that his time as manager has come to an end. That's in Eamon Sweeney's opinion.
All right. I want to move on, Di. I want to talk to you about the Clare Tip game. Before I get your opinion on it, just Clare obviously beat Tip by 5 points yesterday afternoon. Here is Michael Ryan and Clare's Dave Reedy, who scored a goal and 8, talking to Oisin.
That's the thing. It's effort and work rate. If you're a hard working team, there's no excuses not to win your own ball. You can move the ball on the ground as well. It's great to see. 2 points on the board, and again get the recovery right, and we look forward to the next game.
Well done.
Our interpretation of how we need to be this year is having a broader, stronger panel, and we need a bigger base. We've always had big panels, but in terms of game time, I think it's going to get. Is
that because of the championship format?
Absolutely,
more
I think
games.
it's going to. That's a direct implication, we believe, of the format that's coming up in May for us, and that's probably the overwhelming objective that we've got in this league is to broaden the base.
And are you finding that's going to motivate maybe the guys who were kind of 18 to 20, 20 to 25 in your panel, because they know now they probably have more of a chance of getting game time?
We've called it out. We've told them, if the number was 21 or 22, 23 that we've ever used in a championship campaign before, that number probably needs another 4 or 5 names in there of people who will actually get game time. So look, at the rewards are massive for the panel, and it really, I suppose it uses the panel to the absolute hilt. But look at this is match day 1 on the 28th of January. There's loads of hurling to look forward to here now.
Yeah, you did actually remind me there that it is still January, so let's not get carried away either way. Michael Ryan, Tipperary manager, thank you.
Okay, Oisin.
Yeah, I guess the fact that Galway managed to win the All-Ireland from Division 1B last year means that if you are Michael Ryan, you're looking at the league and you're saying, I need more players here. I don't really need the points as desperately as I need to discover who my 25th player on the panel is going to be, because I'm going to need them in the last couple of weeks of August, hopefully.
Yeah, it's a really interesting interview. There was very little reference, and we obviously it's a snippet of it, but very little reference to actually losing the game or how they lost the game. And I know Michael has been vocal in relation to the format that's coming up, that he wasn't in favour of it. But I think he's taken a pretty pragmatic view in that it is a different format. It is obviously going to be more games, and the depth of panel, strength of panel is absolutely critical. But let's face it, Tipperary are genuine All-Ireland contenders. The difficulty really from a Tip point of view is there's no such thing as progress with this group of players. It's either you win the All-Ireland or it's a really bad year. And I'd go along with that, to be honest with you. Over the last couple of years, Galway kind of have been the nemesis. Okay, 2 years ago, Tip beat them in a classic semi-final and went on and won the All-Ireland. And then, you've Galway winning the All-Ireland. That for Tip is really poor. They'll believe with this particular group of players they should have won more. And I would feel that over the last number of years, Tip have got a poor return for the quality of players they've had. They've never put back-to-back over the last number of years. And I think that grates deeply with Michael Ryan. I know it does. And they were hugely disappointed last year. So, he made some ruthless decisions last year. He won't want to lose too many more league games, because again, it goes back to your point here. The more games you win, it creates this role and a good feeling within the squad. If it's a thing you were to lose another league game, you can only keep referring back to, well, it's only January. Then all of a sudden, well, it's only February. And you have championship games coming up in 4 to 6 weeks' time. So Tipperary have a strong panel. He knows what quality is there in the panel. It's not like he's looking for players out of blue. He knows right well who he has. A disappointment yesterday, that's acceptable. We'll move on from that. But let's look at this thing closely with Tipperary. Nothing outside of an All-Ireland final matters. So people will be watching closely, and particularly within Tipperary, as to where they go, because there's pressure on Mike this year.
Good win for Clare all the same.
Oh, great win for Clare. I have to say, I fancied them, especially down there. And I mean, Clare have lost Colin Ryan and guys like this, but in many respects, although there was a new management team in last year, you get the feeling that actually this is really their first year, because Donal Logue had been involved there, which was a continuation in many respects of Davies' regime. So I really feel this is kind of their new year. And again, they're a team like Limerick that I'm just so really looking forward to seeing this year. They'll be massively disappointed they haven't added to the All-Ireland success of 13, because there's a lot of talent in Clare. They have the right dynamic. There's huge amount of speed. I just felt last year they played a brand of hurling that didn't suit the skill factor that they have, which is absolutely superb. Great pace, but they just need to speed the hurling up a little bit and get it indirect a little bit more. Again, still overplaying it. But that, again, I believe was kind of a remnant of Davy's regime, and that's his way of playing. Clare are a good side. Clare have good hurlers, and Clare are in the mix this year, and they are genuine contenders as well.